And where it's Black Friday this week and thousands of companies and ads are offering all sorts of tempting discounts. Now, we all take it for granted that these companies are telling us the truth, that they have the products and they will genuinely give us a discount. We don't expect to turn up at the shop on Black Friday only to be told, oh, actually, we're not going to give you a discount after all. We've changed our minds. If a business runs ads on TV or a radio telling you that they will give you a 10% discount or give you $100 off such and such an item, they are obliged to do so. If not, they are in breach of the law and can be prosecuted. But not in politics. 3 of the shonkiest retailers in Australian politics, Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong and Chris Bowen, are playing you for mugs. In the run-up to the federal election, these Labor left-wing sales reps promised repeatedly that they would slash your energy bill. They were even very precise about the precise discount that they would give you, $275.
Power prices by $275. That will reduce power prices by $275. $275. $275 a year. $275. $275. $275. $275 a year by $275.
Reducing power prices by $275,
which will be $275.
Bowen and Albanese, it's like Steptoe and Son. If they were a store, Bowen and Albanese, they would be in serious, serious trouble. They have made a retail commitment, a promise to 26 million Australians, which they have now unequivocally and shamelessly broken. This is unacceptable. But it gets much worse. Nowhere during the election campaign at any point did these shonksters, these Bowen and Albanese, mention that they intend to take from you and hand over to foreign governments, not as emergency aid, not as part of some pre-existing diplomatic protocols, not in exchange for goods or services, but billions of dollars of your money being handed over. Last weekend, the Australian Labor government appropriated potentially billions of your dollars from you, from your offspring, from your future businesses, from your future lives, without any electoral mandate to do so whatsoever. They'll take it from your taxes that should be paying for new roads, that should be paying for hospitals for your kids, money that should be spent on educating the next generation and the one after, and supporting every small business, every enterprise in Australia. Nah, you're not going to get it. Instead, Albanese and Bowen have committed to hand it over to foreign countries with no strings attached. Here we go. No hope of ever seeing any return from it in Australia to you, the taxpayer. I call it Grand Theft Albo, or the penny-pinching Wong heist, or the Great Bowen burglary. And here it is in full swing.
Just to go back to that very important position that you've been given along with your Indian colleague to get an agreement on climate adaptation, what would be your benchmark for success from this point?
Well, I think the benchmark is to have a process that the developing world can see is meaningful, substantive and working towards progress, working towards a real outcome. It's not going to be the case that we walk away from Sharm el-Sheikh with agreement about exactly how much money, etc., but to have an agreed process to work these issues through for the new green climate financing facilities which will replace the previous commitment.
The United Nations and the IPCC are talking about trillions of dollars being siphoned from so-called wealthy countries. That's us, even though our fraudulent government can't even find the cash to stick to its $275 energy cut. We ain't that wealthy, obviously. But it can find billions to give to a whole raft of nations to fritter away on whatever madcap climate schemes that may or may not work or may not even be needed. Even the ABC admits that the land mass has increased, not retreated, among many Pacific islands despite climate change. This brazen transfer of wealth, which has been plotted and trumpeted by the socialists and globalists of the United Nations for decades, goes under various euphemisms: climate adaptation, loss and damage, climate reparations, and so on. But the end result is the same. Australians get poorer, that's you. Unaccountable third world governments and despots get richer. Full stop. Yesterday in Parliament, Peter Dutton quite rightly asked how Labor could treat Australians so callously. Here he is.
At a time when Labor's policies are driving up cost of living pressures for families, the government has just signed up to funding a $2 trillion loss and damage climate fund, which will send money overseas and beyond our region. Prime Minister, doesn't charity begin at home? And when will you start helping Australian families instead of giving away their money?
Now, that was a perfectly legitimate and valid question. But showing not only how desperate Labor is to admit what they are actually doing, first Albanese turned nasty and feral, and then, oh, what a surprise, in true lefty desperation, Albo smeared Peter Dutton, accusing him of dog whistling, i.e. race baiting. And then Albo tried to justify this theft with inane garbage about cutting global emissions. It was a fiasco.
The idea that any foreign aid is giving Australians money to foreigners ahead of Australian interests, the Leader of the Opposition knows better than exactly what he is doing with that question. He knows exactly. And the only people who are pleased about that question are the people sitting in the corner up there, because they represent seats that have rejected that sort of dog whistling tactic from the Liberal Party. From the Liberal Party.
Order.
And the Leader of the Opposition...
Members on my left.
The Leader of the Opposition, who pretends he wants to be kinder and gentler, comes into this house...
Order.
Comes into this house and asks a question like that. Well, I'll tell you what the entry fee is. To enter into discussions around the table with our international partners, whether it's the United Kingdom, whether it's the United States, whether it's Japan, whether it's India. It is taking climate change seriously. That is the entry ticket that you need in international affairs in 2022. What you don't need is that sort of nonsense. And for a political party who says that Australia reducing our emissions isn't good enough because we need a global reduction in emissions, but then to press that button shows the contradiction which is there. I'd say to the Leader of the Opposition, you're better than that. Or maybe you're not.
What a disgrace. Well, you heard it there, straight from the horse's mouth. Your money is being spent so Labor characters can sit around in global meetings, and that's the entry ticket. So they can sit there and feel good about themselves. They are stealing your money, and they have no mandate to do so. On top of which, just remember Rowan's rule. The moment you play the race card to support an argument that has nothing to do with race, you lose. The moment you rely on the argument of global emissions, you lose. And the moment you smear a decent man like Peter Dutton, you've shown you've already lost.